So before we get too far into Photoshop, it's important that we go over how to use brushes. You need to learn about hard and soft brushes and opacity and how to change colors a little bit more. So I'm going to give you this worksheet here, this file. You're going to download it, open it up in Photoshop, and then what you're going to do is just do the brush stroke underneath the specification that I have. All right, so to find your brush tool, go over here and click B on your keyboard if you can't find it. Click it and then hold this out to see the other tools that are nested in the same spot and make sure that you have brush tool selected. Alright, and before you start brushing on here, I would highly recommend making a new layer for all your brushes. So you can either click this plus sign down here, you can go here and say layer, new layer, or you can go up in the menu, layer, new layer. So there's many ways to do that. So we can just call this brushes and say okay. That way if you look at your layers tab, all the brush work that we're going to do is on a different layer. So if we make a mistake and don't like something, we did not ruin our background layer. It'll be on a separate layer. Okay, so make sure you have a new layer for your brushes. Alright, now to pick these right here, these are the specifications for colors. I'm going to show you how to do that real quick and then we'll get in to actually painting with the brushes. So over here are your color pickers. This one is called the foreground color. This is the background color. Whatever color you have selected as the foreground color is the color that your brush is going to paint with. So let's click on this and open up the color picker. So you'll see that there's these different specifications for color types. I'm not going to go over the HSB or the lab. We don't really need to know that. I'm going to go over these three color options here. So the first one is RGB, which means red, green, blue. Those are the colors that we specify when we're doing digital documents, such as the one we're working on right now. So what I want you to do is put in the numbers that I have out here for you. So we're going to go in red and choose 225 and go in blue and choose 225. And then we get this kind of magenta color like that. Okay, and leave the green on 0 and say OK. So we have our color picked out. Now let's pick the type of brush. So when you have the brush tool selected, like all tools, the controls for that are up here. So if we click on different tools, we get different information up there. When we have the brush tool selected, we have these controls here. So what you're going to do is open this right here, this little down arrow, and that lets you choose the size and the hardness of the brush. And those are the first two specifications that we're going to use for this for the very first brush that you're going to do. So let me close that out for just a minute. One other thing I wanted to show you for size. Notice how my cursor is that little circle right there. If you use your bracket keys, which are to the right of the letter P on your keyboard, you can make your brushes bigger and smaller. So that is definitely a good trick to know when you really get into Photoshop and you're painting and brushing things. You'll want to use your bracket keys more than actually putting in the number. But for today, we're going to put in the number. So I have a hard brush, 100 pixels. So let's open that up. And I said for it to be 100 pixels. So you can either slide it or type in 100. And we want it to be a hard brush. That means 100% hardness, and let's see what that does. So all you got to do is just brush a line down below that to show me that you know how to make a hard brush, 100 pixels, and with this color. Okay, so let's go over to the next one. Let's click on the color and change that. So this time we're going to do a CMYK, cyan, magenta, yellow, black. That's just like if you're using ink cartridges in a printer. Those are the colors that you use for printing. So I specified 100% cyan, and the other colors are going to be 0. So we have this blue color. Say OK, so that's our color. And now let's get a soft brush that is 100 pixels. So let's go up here to the brush options. The soft brush is when you make the hardness go all the way down to 0. So 100 pixel is the size, the hardness is 0 because we want a soft brush. And then go down here and just brush a line down there showing me that you know how to change the color and the brush specifications. Alright, let's go do another one here. So this one, the color is a web color. So let's open up the color picker here and go down here at the bottom. These are the colors that you use when you're programming a website. These are called hexadecimal colors. And the color I have specified is just 00000, which is black. That is the color for black. Say OK. And this time we want a hard brush, 100 pixels. So we want hard brush, 100 pixels. This time we're going to add another thing to the specification. It says opacity. So if you go down the row here a little bit, you see opacity. You're going to change this to 75. So you can either type that in, or you can, or you can use, if you make a mistake like that, just exit out of it. You can use the slider, or you can type it in. And what the opacity does, it makes it so it's not a full black. So when I paint this here, you see it looks more gray. And notice if I keep going over it, it gets darker and darker. So opacity is just like see-through. It's not like full, it's not on at, full amount. So it's just kind of see-through. So paint me a black line showing me that it's 75% opacity. And then let's go to the next one. Eraser, soft brush. So the eraser tool is right here. You can press E on your keyboard if you don't see it. You can click and hold this open and see the other types of erasers there are. We want just the regular eraser. And it needs to be a soft brush, 20 pixels. So we're going to go in here and make the softness, the hardness 0, which makes it soft. And we want it to be 20 pixels. I already have that. We want the opacity 50, so we already have that setting. Now, before you can start erasing on here, I want to show you that you have this is a background layer that has the template for this assignment, and if you want to erase anything on here, you need to unlock it. So you'll have to go over here to the unlock button, click that. Now it becomes a regular layer, and we're going to move off the brushes layer onto this layer. And now you can show me that you know how to use the eraser. All right, and notice since we had 50% opacity, it's not fully erased unless you keep going over it. So if you go over one spot a lot, like if you click and let go, you can see that it erases it further. All right, and that checkerboard background that you see, that's whenever something is transparent in Photoshop, it gives you that checkerboard. It's not actually there, it just shows there as being a transparency. All right, one more eraser. Let's go to a hard brush. So open this, make the hardness 100%. You want the size of the brush to be 50 pixels this time. You can just type it in or just make it close, that's fine. And the opacity this time is 100. So full opacity and erase down there like that. Alright, so now you know how to do some erasers and some different brushes. Now we're going to go into more of like a custom brush. Let's go back to our brushes layer. Make sure you're not painting on layer 0. Go back to your brushes, and this time we're going to choose one of Kyle's screen tone brushes. Alright, and we want the size to be 100, so you can type that in here. We want the opacity to be 100, so we got opacity is 100. Size is 100, and the hardness and softness doesn't matter as much when you're choosing one of these custom brushes. So scroll down here and pick one of Kyle's screen tones. Doesn't matter which one, and there's 2 of them. I'll choose this one, and I said that you could pick any color you want, so feel free to just choose a color you like and draw me a line going down there like that. Alright, let's try another one of Kyle's brushes. So click over here, and this says any of Kyle's splatter brushes. So I'll pick this one here. I want to be a 50 pixel size, so let's change that to 50. Close enough. And the opacity is 100, and it can be any color. So change the color to anything you like and paint on that spot there. Alright, notice how with the splatter brushes, if you just keep letting go of the mouse and going back, you can make it darker and darker. So show me how you know how to make it light and dark. And last but not least, you're probably wondering what the poop emoji is over here. What I'm going to show you how to do is make what's called a mixer brush. It basically makes whatever you target and copy the brush that it's going to paint with. So what we need to do first is right now that emoji is flattened onto the background and we need just the emoji without the background. So the way we're going to get that is get your marquee selection tool over here and just drag a box around it. Make sure you don't get any of the text. Just make sure you're copying just the emoji and that you're on layer 0. Make sure you're on that layer and do Control C and Control V. So what you did, and let me turn off all the layers except for that, you see that you just copied that emoji, but it has a white background and we want to take that off. So make sure you have all the layers turned off except for this one here that has the poop emoji on it. And let's go over here and get this tool called the Magic Wand tool. What it does, it will help you select the background of something. As long as it's all the same color, it works great. So get the Magic Wand tool, click on the white, and then just press delete on your keyboard. And then Control D to deselect. So now we have a poop emoji all by itself and we can use the mixer brush. So let's turn back on your other layers and go make sure you're staying on this layer here. In fact, we can just call it poop if you want. And we're going to go over here to the brush tool and click and hold and get the mixer brush tool. And that's the bottom brush tool in your toolbar over there. Click on that. And what you want to do is make the brush size about the size that the emoji is. So 100 is good enough. We can go with that. And what you want to do is hover the mouse over the emoji and click the Alt key. Notice how when I click the Alt key, it gives a target. That means it's going to copy everything in that circle. So center it over there and click Alt and then click your mouse. That way you took a picture of it. So Alt, click your mouse. Alt, click your mouse. Now it's copied, so I can start painting with it. So you can move the cursor down just below it, and now when you paint, it makes lots of copies. Alright, so that's called the Mixer Brush tool. When you're done with all this, make sure you go to File, Save, and save a PSD like you always do. And that is the editable file. That way if you need to come back in here at another time, after you've closed it, you can still make edits to it. And then you need to save a JPEG to turn in for me. So go to File, Save a Copy, and make sure that you save a JPEG. And that's what you'll turn in to your website